Hey, good evening from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. This is Corey Bachman at the Keystone Carnivore podcast. And tonight, my guest is Blake Bomberger from Frederick, Maryland. He's starting up a gym down there called Unrivaled Iron Gym. It's in Frederick, Maryland. And I met Blake about 10 years ago at Shippensburg University. And there was kind of a core group of guys, about 10 of us that we knew each other. We were into powerlifting, bodybuilding. And tonight on the podcast, he's going to talk a little bit about his low volume, high intensity training routines that he uses when he's at the gym, and also the philosophies that he applies when he gets a new client as well, or maybe a younger client that's just starting out. We also talk a little bit about the nutrition strategies that he uses as far as carbs, fats, proteins as well. And we also talk a little bit about, things that maybe we wish that we learned before we, got a little bit more serious into lifting and just bouncing off ideas with each other tonight. So, without furthermore, let's introduce Blake to the podcast tonight.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, welcome back to episode 13 of the Keystone Carnivore podcast. Tonight, my guest is Blake Bomberger from Unrivaled Iron Gym is it Frederick, Maryland?
Yep. It's in Frederick, Maryland. Yeah.
Okay. And Blake is an NPC heavyweight bodybuilder,
Light heavy.
and light heavy, light heavy. And I met Blake about 10 years ago at Shippensburg, and a lot of us were into powerlifting, bodybuilding then, and we still are today. So I have Blake on tonight telling us a little bit about his bodybuilding career and just some strategies he'd like to share about training and nutrition tonight.
Sure. Yeah, it's been a while. It's kind of cool to regroup and come back to where we kind of left off from college. We had a good group of guys there, and give them some shout outs. Kyle Naylor, Justin Guy, Ice, right? And then our boy
Kenton Kramer,
Yep.
Brian Picarello.
Brian Picarello, I still keep in touch with him too. And then
Yep.
and then my best friend Loader from
Yeah,
college.
Adam. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Awesome. Good. Well, Blake, tell us a little bit about how you got involved with powerlifting and then bodybuilding too.
Cool. So yeah, I started off, like I said, I was nine, just telling you earlier, 9.5 was like the first time I was in the gym. 9.5. My first power meet was at the Y in Lancaster, actually right near you.
Okay.
And then I ventured right into WMPF, and I lifted there from 10 years old until, 16, 17. And it kind of went into training at a place called Fifth Street Powerhouse, which is, everyone hears me rave about Fifth Street and Bob Nagel, and that was like my second dad. And I continued to powerlift a little bit with him. Gene Wright trained out of there, some really big powerlifting names. He was the first guy to bench 1,000, or one of the first guys with Mendelson. So I grew up around these like animals at the age of like 13, 14. It was crazy. There's no gym like that. I mean, it was like a mini West Side. Yeah, it was cool. So
good.
Powerlifted and then kind of trained for football all 4 years into high school. And then when I met you guys in college, and I realized I wasn't going to play football anymore, and then it kind of led into bodybuilding. So
right,
base for a solid, I'd say almost 10 years, and then that led into bodybuilding, where I caught the bodybuilding bug and did my first show. I basically got into bodybuilding end of high school, but did my first show sophomore in college. Yeah.
Okay.
And process, I just once I did the first show, I had mentors, BJ and Mary Barnes from back home. They were
Okay.
body local to me, and they mentored me into that first show, and I loved it. I was like, yeah, this is it. This
Okay.
is it. Yeah.
Now, probably over time, has your training strategy evolved from what you did early on? Like, how has it evolved over time?
I honestly, I've always keep the solid base, the same kind of foundation, the foundational principles, which I feel like, not to go on a huge rant, but I feel like they're kind of lost nowadays. I think it's very information overload. I feel bad for some of these younger lifters because, like, guys like you and I, man, when we came up, like, I had that 10 years of a powerlifting base, just basic bread and butter foundational movement patterns, squat, bench, deadlift. I got really strong at those. It built my base. And then I had that foundation where I could build off those building blocks and to kind of add and critique what worked and what didn't. So then, everyone kind of says, what's your training style? Well, it's evolved over the years from higher reps, higher volume, low reps, high intensity, Dorian style,
Yeah.
Jay style. I literally did it all, and I have a book just like that. I have all these books everywhere, and I always have, and I write it down. And, well, this didn't work. This training cycle did. This one didn't. I'd be like, that worked, and I mesh all that together, and it kind of became this culmination of nothing fancy. At the end of the day, it kind of looped back around to where I started. You
Okay.
try stuff through all these years, and then you go, yeah, I kind of was good with what I had going from the start, and I got real fancy with it. But then I learned a lot along the way, and and now I'm able to apply that and teach that to my clients and stuff too, which is great. But I'd say my overall principle for training would definitely be a progressive overload style.
Okay.
However, I say that lightly now because I think people get really obsessed. It's like you're on team logbook progressive overload, or team I hate the logbook and I do whatever I want. I just go grab
Right.
a pump. So I think let's meet the middle there. Let's log our lifts. Let's make sure we're progressing somehow.
Right.
Throw out volume. There's a time and place for some higher volume, getting blood to the muscle, but there's also a time to lift heavy and hard. Intensity should always be a prime factor no matter what style, right? And I think that's lost too. Just general rep execution and focusing on the intended reps at hand. So that's the biggest, I'd say. So I had to take away one thing. It's slowing reps down,
Right.
making sure you're feeling the muscle. Because I learned, it took me a long time to realize I need to take my ego and just move it to the side and realize
Hmm.
if I don't feel something working, well, then it's probably not working and I need to move on. So that's why I stress that so much. I probably sound like a broken record, but
Yeah.
that's kind of it. So
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with you because, I talk about that, with some people that I train too, including myself. Um, and on my Instagram page, I post a lot about Dorian Yates, Mike Menser. Do you kind of follow like a lower volume and higher intensity approach yourself, like in an off season and then getting ready for a show?
yeah, so that's a great question because my training style in off season doesn't really change when I go into prep. It's the same thing, right?
Okay.
I'm still tracking, intensity still high. Now, the thing to think about is recovery patterns, right? Recovery patterns it's not a straight line or it's not linear progress. It's kind of a roller coaster, right? There's dips and valleys with recovery regarding what stage you're in off season, what stage you're in pre-contest. There's that beginning, mid, end of pre-contest. So you kind of have to gauge and change it as you go throughout those waves, if you will. So um, I guess to answer the question, Mike Menser, I mean, he actually grew up in Ephrata, PA.
Yeah, Ephrata. Yeah.
Grandfather knew his family.
Did he really?
Yeah. So
Oh
heavy
man.
duty, like Dorian Yates. I mean, Dorian. I love Dorian, right? Who doesn't? I'd say I use higher volume on certain body parts like arms and shoulders.
Okay.
But I'm always going to have a compound movement that I take till pretty much high, like failure, right?
Okay.
Everything till pretty much mechanical failure, positive failure, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Uh, but I think I'll put it to you this way: I'm in and out of the gym within 50 minutes to an hour no longer. I
Right.
think if you're in, unless it's legs and you need more time for your sets to recover and things like that, if you're in the gym for over an hour and a half, like you're probably not doing it right. Like I take clients all the time. I'm like, why don't you come for a one-on-one session? Let's train. I'm sure you do the same thing, right?
Right.
You get them in 2 exercises and they're ready to go to the bathroom and throw up. I'm like,
Hmm.
we're 15. I'm like, what have you been doing? Well, I've been in the gym for 2 hours. Now they're 15 minutes in and they're throwing up. So I'm like, I don't know what we're doing. And it comes back down to what I mentioned before, like
Right.
actually focusing on rep to rep and actually focusing on the intended muscle working. Are you just moving weight from point A to point B? And moving weight to point A to point B usually falls under that category of high intensity. Everyone, let me just move this weight. Well, that's not going to work, right? It's only going to work if it's set up properly in a program and you're moving that weight with intent. So my training levels, though, they're intense the whole way through. It doesn't really change, pre-contest and all season, other than recovery.
Yeah. Now with your intensity and the type of volume that you regulate in your workouts, do you back off on the frequency, or have you backed off as you gotten older? Like as
Another
far
great.
as days per week?
Yes, I
Okay.
can probably at this point train 4 days a week for about an hour. So you add that up, 4 hours a week. That would probably be enough
Okay.
at this point. I like to train 5, and I'll make my split because I need like an arm day because my arms are terrible. So like if I have a
Okay.
week, I'll throw it in on another day and I'll maneuver that split. Like right now, I basically run like a 7-day split and I break those bodies up accordingly.
Okay.
Kind of like a push pull legs, but modified.
Right.
Just enough time that I know I'm going to recover till I come the next time around. What I found, I think what you're getting at here too, is what I found is throughout the years, I can't train high volume because I go. I mean, you see me train before,
Yeah.
and I go nuts, and then I only need 3 exercises and I'm toast.
Right.
Because everything into those sets, I'm like literally letting the demons out and going nuts, and like I've learned over time. I've injured myself here and there, right? Shoulder, herniated discs, those things from
Yeah.
recovery not being there and training with too much volume, with too much intensity, right? It was like I was doing too much, and my body was like, "Dude, no." So
Yeah.
I started backing off just a little bit. I think it was unintentional, but I started backing off a little bit. My body started to respond fast, and I'm like, "Oh man, there's something to this." Like, let me just stick to like 3 to 4 movements per body part, 6 to 8 working sets or something. So I guess to answer the question completely, I guess I am pretty low in, low volume
Yeah.
in everybody else.
Okay. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I would totally agree with you with that. Do you ever get like any new clients coming in and like totally fresh, like maybe some kid in high school or college and they're just kind of lost? Like, would you start them off with lower volume, or would you throw that intensity at them right away, or how
I,
would you bring them into it?
yeah, what I try to do is find a more of if it's someone fresh like that, a younger kid. I have a bunch of younger guys, and some of them they don't even know how good they are, man. And it's like,
Okay.
oh, this is great. I got them while they're young. Like if we would have known some of the stuff we knew at
Right.
19, holy crap! Not that we're like genetic freaks or anything, but like, man, it would have been nice to know a lot of this stuff way back in the day. Yeah, I usually try to keep it pretty basic, fairly basic, and I really try to drive that. That's where I really try to drive progressive overload.
Okay.
Grab a book, take these 4 movements on chest day, make these 4 movements perfect, and slowly progress in weight. Take your time and really focus on it. Maybe add even a rep. Like I try to enforce them. If you add a rep to each movement per week at the same weight, that's a lot of progress over time, right? So when you got, guys and girls that are young, they want instant gratification like most of us do, the American way. They want it now, but I try
Yeah.
to really force them to take your time. Make sure you're perfect. Log these. If you keep progressing in that logbook and you keep progressing in that progressive overload pattern, you're going to
Hmm.
get strong and you're going to add muscle tissue fast.
Right.
If you bouncing around and doing all over the place and not logging things, you're wasting time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's when I get guys that are already advanced and already like in a spot where all that muscle, that foundation's there, given their background. Maybe they already lifted for 20 years. Well, now we can go in and kind of play around and see, hey, let's see what works for you. What's your training style now? Let's get you. I try to probably push a little bit more lower volume on everybody.
Okay.
Try to hone in on, send me videos. And as soon as they start sending me videos, I'm like, nope. These look like crap. This looks like probably this is where I'm known as like a stickler, but I'm like,
okay.
And going back, if you're not moving the weight properly, like you're just wasting your time in there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can be 2 hours pumping arms away, but if you're not doing anything correctly, the benefit's not there. So yeah, younger, basic foundational principles, progressive overload, try to make it simple, simplify it, because they're on Instagram all day and they're like, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that and this and giant set this and, drop set this. And it's like,
yeah.
And if you just focus on the basics, you go a long way. Same with diet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about that too next. One of the things, you were mentioning about scrolling on that phone all day long on Instagram, Facebook, social media. I used to get caught up on that when it first kind of hit the scene. It's like, who do you listen to?
Right.
I mean, back, probably when we were kids, we'd grab like a Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazine at the grocery store.
Dude,
and then we're trying to do Arnold's routine,
Yeah, 4 sets of 10, 3 sets of 12.
But what's funny about that is I used to always see in those magazines, believe it or not, Dorian's routine. And when it said 1 set, I thought, what that like, wait a minute. I don't understand that.
The 6 or 7 feet, the feeder sets that leading up. What I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, that used to be in the magazines too.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand it until, watching the Blood and Guts videos and then listening to Mike Mentzer too. But
I remember we had like forums, like I sound like the old man, uphill both ways, but like back in the day, man, there was like all we had was like forums and stuff to read, and we would sit there all night in college, and I'm just reading all these forums and taking notes on stuff, not even understanding half of it, not understanding the other half, and it pays off, but
and same way with nutrition too. Which kind of led me into one of my next questions here. Like, how do you approach it with nutrition just in general, carbs, fats, and proteins, like off season? How do you approach it right now?
For myself or clients?
For yourself.
Yeah, for myself. So my coach is Derek Natcher. I've been working with him. He's my boss at Team Loud. I coach under Team Loud, so most people know that.
Okay.
Coach, mentor, big brother. Man, he's a great guy. Very, very knowledgeable. Kind of has the same kind of background as we do, but a little bit more extensive with like, I don't know all your credentials by now, but man, he kind of takes the charge on all of it. We figured out, so it's been it's like 5.5 years of us working together. So I haven't left. I no need to leave Derek. Like he knows me like the back hand at this point. Okay. He knows what's going to work for my body and exactly what doesn't. I mean, there's nothing shiny or fancy about it, man. It's, my off seasons are very, we can't push food really that high. Okay. I have IBS and stuff like that. And it's pretty bad. So my gut is super sensitive, man.
Right.
And look, to grow as much as possible, there's all these diets out there and the way to do things. I think each diet has a good principle and you need to stand behind whatever diet works for you. Right. For me, trying to grow a ton of muscle as much as possible, I do need to eat quite a bit, but I got to be really selective in what I eat. So food selection's big. Making sure we're not breaking past that point where my digestion starts to go to shit. Because when it does, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare when it does. And so we're pretty laid back when it comes to like my off season. I don't like bulk. We just put myself in a surplus and we just kind of leave it there and we tinker it as we go. I'm not a weight guy. My weight doesn't go like flying up 5 pounds a week or anything like that.
Okay.
You know, it's big. I think that photos are big for me, checking photos to see like how my body's responding more than what we see on the scale. So yeah, my carbs, like for instance, right now we're in a holding pattern right now. So right now I'm able to kind of hold it. Like I'm 211 pounds now, fasted in the morning, about 215, 216 at night.
Okay.
And I'm holding like a little over 400 grams of carbs, about 75, 80 grams of fat, and
Okay.
about and 80 some grams of protein. So it's not
Okay.
off the. That's enough for me to just hang out.
Right.
Go into surplus. We'll tinker with fats, get them up a little bit, play with carbs. We play with fats a lot more than we play with carbs because with me,
Okay.
I get real sloppy. If I can't go like 700 grams of carbs, I just get fat. It doesn't work well. Same with my protein. We can't double up on protein and shoot it through the roof, or then the GI inflammation's incredible and I can't digest anything. And once we fall off that slope, it's like my body needs we almost have to pull back and let reel me back in then. And it's a mess. So I know when we diet, we get fairly low. I'm not as I'm older, it's easier to burn fat off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not coming in with genetics. I'm not going to beat you with round, beautiful muscle and aesthetics.
Right.
Right. So we try to build as much muscle as we can in the off season. And then when we come down, we got to get pretty low. My cardio gets not crazy high, probably around 45 minutes tops. Training intensity kind of takes care of the rest, but we definitely shoot for conditioning. We play the conditioning card hard with me.
Yeah.
Hard. I sacrifice a little bit of muscle.
Right.
Some areas to make sure my backside comes in, like my hams and glutes. They're the last thing to come in. So I probably sacrifice.
Yeah.
Right. It is what it is, and the genetics aren't there. We got to play but the one thing I know I can do is suffer more than anyone else.
Okay. I guess that's what it comes down to, when you're in the last couple of weeks, how can you suffer harder than, the person you're going to be standing beside?
That's why I bit the bug on bodybuilding though.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, well, I'm not that great with my genetics or my shape, but I can probably work harder than everybody else. So I'll just do that.
Okay.
That's my real. So, it worked. I guess it worked out. I'm a mediocre amateur, so it works.
Okay. So no shows coming up for you this year at all?
Oh man, I got at least 12 people, 14 people competing this year.
Oh, okay. That you're taking care of. Okay.
I got a lot of lifestyle clients too. So people think I just work with editors. I predominantly have lifestyle clients, just people want to lose some weight and look good and feel. I'd say 60% of that is lifestyle clients. So, and then on top of that, I have all my competitors. So it's a lot right now. And then we're opening the gym. That's been a lot. I left policing, opening a gym, full-time coaching on a matter of a year, nonstop. So I don't know if I'm going to compete. I would love to. I'm itching to get back on the stage. I mean, it's my love, man. I love competing. Bodybuilding's great. It's my life, hope maybe at the end of the year. I don't know. I can't make any promises, but definitely next year. We'll definitely, I mean, we're still working. I think people think I just stopped or I'm taking off. I never take off, my meals are packed day, my workout, my schedule's still there. It might be a little stressful, right? Yeah. I'm not okay, I'll just stop for a while. I would lose it. I would lose my mind.
Yeah. I mean, you still live the lifestyle, even when you don't have a show coming up.
Yeah.
I learned my lesson early on, thinking that I had to do a show every couple of years when you started, but you're not going to grow that way. So, I recently said, I want to just take 10 years off,
Yeah. I know.
See where that takes you. Still train hard, still eat right, but see where that amount of time would take you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, real quick, this Zoom is kind of messing around with me. This says I have 4 minutes left, But
Oh,
if this stops, we can pick it back up. I can just send you another link, and
my
we can.
phone's good.
Okay, so you were talking about like the quality of meats too.
Yeah, and I basically was just saying, it's hard to find good quality meats nowadays. So
Okay.
shooting protein levels up super high in the first place, and then couple that with poor quality protein.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like a disaster waiting to happen, in my opinion. So, so that's the basis of my diet. It's nothing. I think sometimes people have to like, especially nowadays, people need to find like some new fancy way to surprise everybody. Like, look what I can do. Look what I do. Like with my diet, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't do that. What works, I know it works, and I know it doesn't. I'm always reading and trying to learn and apply new things. Believe me, so I'm not narrow
Mm-hmm.
minded in that regard. But at the same time, it's like once you start venturing on, try to, like, oh, I think people treat diets like religion. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm keto.
Mm-hmm.
I'm carb heavy. I'm this. It's like, oh gosh, all right. Well, let's just find out if something works for you and go with that. Let's get
Yeah.
let's get blood work done. Let's kind of, there's a lot of things to consider there.
Mm-hmm.
What works for one person doesn't work for another.
I
So,
know.
especially with gold, you know, you know this. Like, I mean, right? Yeah, I mean that's obviously Keystone Carnivore. So, um, yeah, I'd like to try that one day. Not to go off topic here, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, I talked about this with a guy in a podcast from Texas one time. It was called My Sugar-Free Journey, and that
uh-huh.
was his podcast. Um, and the reason I came to it was, obviously, you know, Kenton and Bill from Shippensburg said, "Why don't you just try eating higher fats?" Because they did a bodybuilding show, got extremely lean, but
Yeah, yep,
high carbs, low protein, low fat, got extremely sick.
yep,
So it worked, but was it,
yep.
worth it for a plastic trophy? Yeah, I would say it was because I won. But
But that's the part that's kind of what I was getting at, I guess.
yeah,
I know for me, certain high fats and lower carbs, man, my IBS symptoms are
yeah.
gone.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, this is great. So I know, like, once I hang up the trunks in bodybuilding or whatever, I'll probably venture more to a high fat, very low carb, low sugar type diet. Um,
Yeah.
but at the same breath, I'm in the school of thought. And I've seen this with clients. You can't get that much muscle growth out of just not having carbs in play, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, and then I know that's like there's a debatable topic,
Right.
but it's like, well, from what you have to have at least target around certain timing, nutrient timing windows,
Yeah.
making people digest. You have to pick the carb that works for that person.
Hmm.
If you're picking carbs that they get an inflammatory response from, well, then yeah, you're gonna have issues, right? So yeah. I mean, my carbs are like two things.
Okay.
It's like rice, cream
Rice
of
and
rice, and that's like it.
okay.
It's like vertical diet, like Stan Efferding kind of. I feel like
Yeah,
that's my
yeah.
diet, to be honest with you.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
one thing I was going to talk about too.
Yeah.
He mentioned that too. I forget on a podcast, maybe it was Mark Bell or I don't know, it was Sean Baker where he said like if
Sean
he's
Baker's
not
great.
if he's not lifting as much or if he's
Yep.
just kind of like flying from location to location, he won't go as
Yep.
heavy on the carbs
Yep.
and he'll bring
That's
those
what I do.
fats up a little bit. Yeah, so
Yep.
maybe that's a good strategy too. Just kind of build them
Absolutely.
around your
And
workouts.
that's what I
Yeah.
do. So you kind of asked about my diet, and I skipped over kind of quick, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I, I definitely target carb. I'm kind of like John Meadows with the way I structure
Right.
things I'm big in that peri workout window, like that nutrition window, right?
Hmm.
Let's saturate carbs around that workout time and during our workout, where we
Okay.
want that glycogen to be burned off as fuel, right? We want that in play there.
Yeah.
Before bed, I don't think it's necessary to have 80 grams of carbs. Just like in the morning, and people see this on my diets. Some people, not everybody. So my meal one for most people is very low carb because I don't think
Okay.
if you do well when you wake up in the morning and take in 80 to 100 grams of carbs, I don't think it's, even if you're a 250-pound bodybuilder, I
Mm-hmm.
almost like you to have higher fats in the morning,
Yeah.
almost get moderate protein. And I think give your body a little time coming out of that dehydrated state, allow it to wake up a bit. And I think getting some water in and things like that. Now when you go into meal two, we can maybe get some more carbs in and then centralize the rest of it towards the workout.
Okay.
So, and especially rest days, what I do with my rest days too, a lot of times is I'll put a lot of higher fat on that day and pull those carbs down drastically.
Mm-hmm.
So even my off-season bodybuilder might have, I mean, dude, I have a guy that I forget what Ivan was at, or what he's at, 600, almost 700 grams of carbs, burns through them, digestion's perfect, veins shooting everywhere. Sissa still has a six-pack. I'm like, what in the world? And that's a perfect example, right? If I did that with someone else, it would be terrible.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but like his off day, I think his carbs are almost cut in half,
Okay.
and then fats. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think your rest day is a good time to kind of take advantage of so pulling protein down a little bit, getting fats a little higher, and pulling the carbs out or lowering them quite some issues sometimes along the way.
Okay.
Uh,
That's good. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Mauro Di Pasquale, the anabolic diet or the metabolic diet. Not sure if you ever heard of that before.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like he would bring the carbs in, really high, like on the weekends, and then
yeah,
higher fats like during the week. And then he
yeah.
also worked with somebody that I also mentioned before, John Wellborn, with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
Um, so that's always something I always talk about, and a guy that I learned from too,
Yeah.
John Wellborn. He's like one of the really like best in shape offensive linemen ever. Like
Wow.
315 at 9% body fat or something
Oh,
like that.
holy
Yeah,
crap. That's
yeah,
incredible.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you look. I think he was drafted in maybe 2003,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I think he at least played 10 years. Yeah, at least.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, he's pretty good. Yeah.
Good.
But Blake, just to kind of wrap it up tonight, what
Yeah.
advice would you have for maybe some younger people getting started into bodybuilding, powerlifting? What kind of things would you give for them for advice?
Well, I think one big thing, and I'm not saying this because I now coach full time, I really, really wish, well, I had a really good upbringing with having great coaches around me.
Yeah.
That's how I learned all the things I know. It's again a culmination of like when I was young, I tried to be a sponge. So when I went to all these, I'd always try to find hole in the wall gyms, and I'm obsessed
Hmm.
with old school lifting and old school guys. And I love listening to people's concepts, just like you tonight, listening to some, like you best believe I'm going to go look up John Wellborn,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah, check it out.
I think people kind of shut down. They think they know it all, and then they shut down. And
You
kids
never
do that
do.
a lot
Yeah.
nowadays. Yeah, man. When we were young, like that's what our friend group and ship. I mean, like we used to just sit there and go to dinner and talk for 3 hours about diet. I mean,
Yeah.
we weren't your normal college kids, man. I mean, we partied here and there, but like no one went to the Ox
No,
and trained and
no,
squatted 500 pounds
no.
and yelling at each other
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then went out to eat and talked about
Hmm.
how we carb cycle and get ready for our shows. We were all a little odd, but
Yeah.
I loved it. I love it.
Hmm.
Kids definitely aren't like that now. So if I had any big tip of advice, it'd be don't be ignorant to absorbing all the information you can. And if that, what I was going with is try to find a coach. Not, you don't, doesn't have to be me. Go find someone that you
Right.
connect well with that is going to take their time, not your money. And they're going to actually teach you and educate you along the way. I think that's very valuable. So you don't waste time. Years could go by with you doing the wrong thing
Right.
and you not even know it.
Okay.
So, continue to educate yourself, do things for the right reasons, not for Instagram likes. If you want to get into bodybuilding, the last thing you should be doing is finding the lighting in the gym that makes your abs look the best. I think you need to be trying to work on training hard. training intensity, I guess that's the other thing would be, I've never seen, and maybe it's just because I grew up in that like crazy gym. When we walked into Fish Street Powerhouse, it was game on, man. No, like people talked at the beginning of the workout and maybe afterward, but when we were training, we were in it,
Yeah.
and like that's how I was in college too. Like people would be like, "Hey, bro, like you want to go to this spot tonight?" Like my hood went up, my ear fence went on, and was like, "Don't talk to me for the next hour and a half." Like I would snap. You remember that? I would be
Yeah.
like, "I'll snap on people. You get away from me, man. I'm on a
Yeah.
mission." So
Yeah.
treat your lifting serious. Like I don't know why. If you set a goal thing, I don't know why you would just like dick around trying to
Yeah. Definitely.
like, put all your eggs in a basket and go, well, I don't know what it is, but it's just not there. The joy for me, and this is probably Fish Street made this happen.
Right. Right.
If I could squat till my nose bled, I was like, that was a good workout, right? Like
Yeah.
if I'm like, I hope I puke. Like I'd be sitting in class and it'd be Wednesday and I have to squat on Friday and I'd be shaking my leg thinking, oh my God, that leg session's going to be so bad. Like
Yeah.
I'm getting nervous for it now. You know what I mean? Like building it up, and maybe I'm just weird, but I don't know. That's how I think it should be. And I think kids should just put more time and effort into their diet, their training, and just focusing on those foundational things. And again, I do feel bad for kids. And this is why I love when younger kids reach out, because I'm like, cool, let's get them in the right path here, because
Right.
I feel bad. And we didn't have to worry about that.
No.
Because if I was their age and I had Instagram and all this stuff, I'd be doing the same thing. So
Yeah.
would you. We'd be sitting there
Same
scrolling,
here.
we'd be trying to figure things out, but we'd be like, God, what is right and what is wrong?
Yeah.
And then you have like these poser fake, I don't want to go on a big rant, but
Online gurus. Yeah.
dude, it's like,
Yeah.
you live for a year and you buy a bunch of Gymshark shit and you stand in find the lighting and do some of this stuff and you're like classic fit. Like, oh my God, dude, you're so far from it, man.
I know. Well, Blake, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so if you can go on my Instagram. It's just Blake Bomberger.
Okay.
In my bio, I have Blake at teamloud.com.
Okay.
And for our gym as well, we have the whole website for our gym, all the stuff around me.
Okay.
You can go on unrivalediron.gym.com, and the website's there. It's in my bio as well for Instagram, so you can check out the gym. My coaching's there. Yeah, give me a shout out if anyone's interested or anything like that. Don't be afraid to reach out, and we can see if we can set something up. So,
all right, man. Well, hey, thanks for being on the show tonight, and I'll have to stop down at your gym sometime
100%.
once you guys have everything opened up.
Yeah.
And we'll have to do some posts from that location then.
Absolutely. Yep. Get some nasty training in.
Yep. All right, man. Well, thanks for the podcast
You got it
tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.